right, everybody, some severe weather to talk about for your Thursday and Friday. We're going to go in and we're going to take kind of a quick look at the overall forecast just to kind of so people can get in, get a sense for the timing and the location of some of the severe weather that's expected going into Thursday and Friday. And then we'll take a little bit of a deeper look and get an idea of some of the failures and some of the problems that are associated with the forecast regarding these storms. So we're going to go on and take a look at what the Storms Prediction Center is indicating currently for the most likely area to see severe storms. And for Thursday, this area in the orange is an enhanced risk. So it's a 3 out of 4 possibility of seeing some severe weather. The yellow stretching across the remainder of North Dakota and across northern parts of South Dakota and into western parts of Minnesota. That's the slight risk. So that's a 2 out of 5. And then you kind of have your marginal essentially stretching out across the remainder of the region. Now, for now, here's your tornado risk, a 5% chance across central North Dakota, kind of into the James River Valley as well, a 2% chance across almost the rest of North Dakota in a way, and stretching into north central, northeastern parts of Minnesota, or South Dakota rather. Now, the wind and the hail is going to be the biggie. Look at the hatched areas. This is greater than a 10% chance of seeing winds above 70 mile per hour within a location of a 25-mile radius, essentially, within this. So this is big. We're looking at some pretty strong winds, 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, essentially expected within this region. And then when we take a look at the hail parameter, a little bit further back to the west where these storms ultimately are expected to sort of get going. Wouldn't be surprised if this gets stretched up to the northwest a little bit to include kind of that area where I think the initiation is going to take place. In fact, even the tornado, I think that tornado area is going to be stretched back to the northwest as well to include that. I think that's where it's going to get started. And a lot of times, again, especially around here, where these storms develop is where some of the strongest updrafts begin and rotation quickly develops and the tornadoes develop. So I think that northwestern part's going to be included eventually for the tornadic activity. But for now, here's kind of what they're looking at for the hail and where the best chance for seeing some large hail over 2 inches. So over golf ball size, hail larger than golf ball size within these regions here. So yeah, unfortunately, the white combine is going to be coming across North Dakota for Thursday. Now for Friday, kind of the preliminary area right now looks to be this enhanced area across the Red River Valley and into northeastern parts of South Dakota. Still, I guess, part of the Red River Valley. So that's your 3 out of 5 for severe risk. A slight risk here across the yellow, so across the remainder of eastern parts of the Dakotas, western Minnesota, and then marginal for the remainder of the region. Now, at the moment, they don't have the breakdown of the tornadoes and the hail and the wind and all that, but that will be coming Thursday. You'll see that Thursday. There'll be an update. I'll make sure and push these updates on my social media sites on Thursday and going into Friday to show where the latest thinking is for the best possibility for the severe weather. All right, so I'm using what they call the Rufus model. It's still kind of in an experimental phase, but sometimes it actually doesn't do too bad. And when I'm looking at this, I think this is about what I think will happen with these storms. Now, we're looking at this for Thursday. This is around 3 p.m. Central Time, so 2 p.m. Mountain Time. And then here is 4 p.m. Central and 3 p.m. Mountain. The storms begin to develop into northwestern parts of North Dakota. They're going to blow up quickly. They're going to have some large hail with it, some damaging winds, perhaps even a tornado or two as they begin to develop. Now, as we get closer to about 6 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Mountain, these storms begin to line up across kind of from Minot to just about to Dickinson, perhaps Beach or so, and begin to track their way east and southeast. So this is around 8 p.m. now Central Time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. These storms begin to line up even more. We've got a pretty good line stretching all the way back across the Missouri, now past Dickinson at this point, past Minot. And then they continue to track east, southeast through the early parts of the night. This is 10 p.m. Perhaps got a pretty good bow echo moving through the Devil's Lake region. These storms continuing further back to the southwest still have some pretty good rotation in. So even those could still have some large hail with it, perhaps some damaging winds, even the possibility of a tornado in there still as we get a little bit later then, as we kind of approach the midnight time frame. This is midnight. Those storms just beginning to reach into the Red River Valley. Still quite strong from north to south, especially down in through here. We've got that bow echo going through the Valley City region, stretching back into that, Edgeley, Allendale-ish area, sort of back into Napoleon perhaps. So again, strong damaging winds, large hail. Can't rule out a tornado still at this point. And then as we get a little bit later into the night, this is 2 a.m. Central, 3, 4 a.m. Those storms finally begin to dissipate a little bit. There's still a few, according to this model, that might have some hail associated with it, even as we get into about the 6 a.m. time frame. I think that's a little bit late. We'll see how that plays out. I think as it gets deeper into Minnesota, those storms will continue to fizzle. It really looks like North Dakota is going to get nailed from this with everything. Hail, wind, a couple tornadoes as well. So you're really going to have to be on the lookout for Thursday. And then for Friday, we reset the stage once again. And we start these storms a little bit later for reasons I'll go into a little bit deeper into the forecast. But some storms begin to develop across western parts of South Dakota and eventually finally begin to take off a little more into central and eastern part of the Dakotas once we get into kind of closer to 9 p.m. ultimately. So here, 10, 11, and midnight, these storms really get cranking, especially across eastern portions of the Dakotas. And maybe if this particular model is correct, they get going into northwest Minnesota as well. You see all these little shadings in through here. This is areas of rotation. So anytime you see that, you're more than likely going to see, at the very least, some large hail associated with it, some damaging winds, and it also has the possibility of developing a tornado within those. So you can see all the little shades that are popping up within these storms. A lot of moisture, a lot of rotation, a lot of spin going on with this particular system as we get into Friday. For reasons that I'll get into a little bit later into the forecast, there is some uncertainty about Friday, just given the amount of warm mid-level temperatures, especially across the south. So we'll see how these develop and when they develop and how they kind of track. But for now, this is sort of what we're looking at as we get into Friday, and probably, like I said, more so Friday evening and Friday night. I think it's going to take a little bit longer for these storms to get going. So once you get to 2, 3, 4 a.m. or so, those storms begin to move into northern parts of Minnesota and kind of stretch into eastern Minnesota at that point as well, and continue to have a possibility, at least, of some pretty strong thunderstorms throughout the night, Friday night, early Saturday morning. So now a little more of a deep dive into this. The models are kind of having a hard time discerning where or when some of these waves are going to be ejecting out of the Rockies. Now, the GFS model has this around 3 to 4 p.m., this little disturbance basically moving just kind of across the northern parts of North Dakota. So obviously kind of giving the impression that some of these storms should remain across the north as we get into the late afternoon and into the evening and early parts of the night. This is really where we're going to be focusing on when it comes to the GFS model, is just along the north. You saw how this wave basically just stayed up there. Now, the instability, when we take a look at the instability portion of this, look at all the high dew points down further to the south. You got a little bit more of a southeasterly component as you get a little bit further to the south. So while we have this upper level wave riding across the north, these storms are also going to want to dip into some of the higher moisture and some of the higher instability. That is further to the south. So that's where these storms, I think, while we have the upper level wave trying to develop these storms further to the north, we have the instability further to the south. So ultimately, I think what we're going to wind up with is a bit of a line developing from north, kind of curling back down to the southwest, and ultimately moving east to southeast, dipping into the higher instability, higher moisture, higher dew points. Now, something curious that the NAM model does is it brings in this first shortwave way earlier. This is 1 o'clock Central Time. You can see how that first wave rides across the north. And some of these models, especially the HER currently, does want to develop something very early and ride it across the north. And then as we get to later into the evening and ultimately actually into the nighttime hours, there's another wave here that ejects out from the west and moves across North Dakota. And perhaps that's sort of what the HER is focusing on, which is curious because this is the NAM model. The NAM 3 kilometer doesn't do what the HER does. To me, looking at this and how this second shortwave comes out much later would make sense that the NAM 3 kilometer would have these late night thunderstorms developing, but it's not. It's a different one. So they're kind of all over the place. I'm not really sure what they're all glabbing onto. But the one thing they all seem to agree upon to a certain degree is the amount of instability that is going to take place as we get into the afternoon hours Thursday and into the evening and early part of the night Thursday night. Look at all this instability, this energy, helicity, down from between 0 to 3 kilometers. Just a ton of rotation, a ton of instability going on all across south central and southeastern parts of North Dakota. So a lot of energy to work with down into here. So these storms likely will develop and dive down to the south and east. But as I mentioned before, we have some capping going on that might limit how far south some of these storms will go. I mean, you get down here at 700 millibars, that's about 10,000 feet in the air, and you're sitting at 16, 17 degrees Celsius. That is really warm and oftentimes difficult to overcome from a storm standpoint. You can see all the moisture is 70, 75 degree moisture, the southeasterly winds pulling into some of these storms that will eventually develop up in the northwestern parts of North Dakota. So just a ton of instability to work with. So we're going to be seeing these storms develop by late afternoon. Friday, we reset once again. Look at all these 70, 75 degree dew points nosing into the Red River Valley. And plenty of heat as well, as we're looking at those temperatures getting into mid to upper 80s for Friday. And so we're going to have high Cape values into the 3,000 to 4,000 joule per kilogram. So plenty of gunpowder in that keg, and this frontal boundary moving through as we get into the late afternoon hours. So ultimately, this is what's going to be setting off the thunderstorms as we get later into the afternoon and evening hours. Now, unfortunately, the problem once again is the capping inversion. We still have plenty of warm air, 15, 16, 17 degrees Celsius. Again, a lot of times that can be difficult to overcome, especially in this part of the United States. Now, we do have a pretty good mid-level wind pushing in here, 45, 50 knots. That slides eastward. So that should help break down that cap as we get into the evening hours. And so it might take a little bit. It might take for those stronger winds to push eastward and break down that warm air dome just a little bit before some of these storms really take off. But there still is so much instability to work with for Friday that I really think eventually something will get going. It's just, as I said before, just a matter of where or when. It's a little more uncertain when it comes to Friday. We're going to have to give it a day yet, perhaps, to feel it out and see how these Thursday storms track across, because ultimately that's going to decide some things for Friday as well, as how they move across, how quickly they move out, and allow the atmosphere to recharge. Those clouds to move out, they need to move away. The sun needs to start shining. The atmosphere needs to recharge again for Friday. And so Thursday will sort of help tell what could come for Friday. Like I said, a little more uncertain Friday. Thursday, really, unfortunately, looking like very likely that we're going to be seeing some large hail, damaging winds, possibility of a tornado or two. Friday, we'll see. The potential is there. It's just a matter of how everything works out. We'll definitely have the live stream up. I will be on as fast as I can Thursday night. Friday, I might even be doing a little storm chase. I'm actually heading down to Brookings, South Dakota for the day. I'm going to go down, come right back. So if you're in Brookings and you happen to find me, say hello. That'd be great. That'd be so much fun. And then who knows, maybe on the way back, coming up I-29, heading towards Grand Forks, maybe I'll run into something along the way and broadcast it. We'll see. We'll see how Friday goes. That could be kind of interesting. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner. Everybody, have a good day.